OutRun is a series that is near and dear to my heart. I'm not a huge racing game fan for the most part, but I enjoy the odd racer like Sonic and Sega All-Star Racing, as well as the F-Zero games, and I played a bunch of Gran Turismo back in the day. But there's always been one series that has stuck out to me as the most enjoyable of the bunch, and that is the OutRun series. In this video, I'm going to be counting down my top 10 OutRun games for home console. I know, a lot of the console games don't really compare to that of the arcade, but there are still some great console OutRun games, so let's get to it. Before we start, remember to like and subscribe. Now let's begin. Battle OutRun looks fine and plays fine, but the concept of chasing down your opponent and trying to wreck their car is executed terribly. It doesn't help that it feels like every single vehicle on the road has a homing beacon locked onto you, constantly bringing you to a stop. This game is frustrating and not really fun at all to play. Even its soundtrack, as you can hear, is quite awful. A sad excuse for an OutRun game, Battle OutRun on the Sega Master System sits way back here at number 10. OutRun 3D for the Sega Master System is a bit of a mess. It runs fine, I guess, but is so incredibly slow, and the clock has no mercy on your slow-ass soul. I guess one benefit of its sluggish speed is that it's much easier to avoid obstacles compared to some of the other OutRun games, but this doesn't make up for how slow and bland this version is. I will say the soundtrack for this one is a big step up from Battle OutRun's. This definitely isn't the best version of OutRun on the Master System though. For that, you'll want to check out OutRun for the Sega Master System is about as good as it gets for an 8-bit rendition of the arcade classic. It's a bit slow, but it plays really well and doesn't look too bad either. The music is pretty decent, about as good as it could be on an 8-bit console. The real downside is that all the routes look pretty samey, and of course, how slow these games are on the Master System. But if you have a Master System and love OutRun games, I'd say pick this one up. It still has that great balance of being relaxing to play yet challenging that the OutRun series is known for. Turbo OutRun on the Sega Genesis is a game and concept that seems and looks great, but is a mess to control. The concept is great, OutRun with a turbo booster. The problems begin with the addition of police cars that try to bring your joyride to a halt. These guys will ram into you and try stopping in front of you so they can stop your fun and arrest you for speeding. The other big downside is the turbo booster itself. You have a ton of booster juice, so running out isn't really an issue. The main problem is that the stages don't really feel like they're designed to be boosted in. I find almost every single time I use the turbo, I'm immediately shot into an obstacle, bringing me to a complete stop. In fact, I'd say the turbo boost is most used to make up for lost time after crashing to bring you back up to normal speed. The game looks and sometimes sounds great, but it's the inability to maintain control while boosting that leaves Turbo OutRun in the dust here at number 7. OutRunners for the Genesis is a pretty enjoyable game, but it is a far cry from its arcade counterpart. OutRunners in the arcade is a multi-cabinet multiplayer experience where you and your rivals race across the world to see who's the best outrunner. The Genesis version obviously isn't nearly as graphically pleasing, but it's still a fairly good game. It's not too hard like a lot of the OutRun console ports, which makes it much more fun to play, and the fact that this is pretty much the only OutRun game that allows multiplayer on home console sets it apart from some of the other OutRun games. It's really cool to just sit back, relax, and cruise through a bunch of different locations from around the world with a buddy. All in all, OutRunners is a good game for the Sega Genesis, but falls way short of its arcade counterpart, so it's hanging back here at number 6. Despite falling short of the arcade version, OutRun for the Genesis is actually a really fun game. The visuals and sound are really well done, and its controls are nice and tight. I'd even go as far as to say the car looks a bit cooler on the Genesis port than it does in the arcade. My only real gripe is the stupid flashing road. A ton of 8 and 16-bit racing games have these flashing roads to make it more obvious that the car is moving quickly, but I've always found it kind of annoying to look at. Honestly though, this is a great game. From the visuals of all the locations, to the car, and even the music is just fantastic in the Genesis port of OutRun. Pretty much everything from here on out in this video are really good home console OutRun games. OutRun 2019 is actually the first OutRun game I had ever played. I got this bad boy for the Genesis when I was a kid and instantly fell in love. In fact, I think a big part of why Turbo OutRun felt so underwhelming is because I grew up playing OutRun 2019 and Turbo just doesn't compare at all, despite having some similar concepts. In OutRun 2019 you can choose between a number of different stages, all with a bunch of different routes to take. This time you have a jet engine that you charge up by maintaining top speed. Once fully charged, the jet engine boosts your speeds up to 682 kilometers per hour. This game does a good job of making you feel like you're going extremely fast while still allowing you to maintain control of your vehicle. I love how the jet engine works, essentially rewarding the player for driving good and avoiding obstacles. I also love how a lot of different paths take you up on high-rising highways and even up on big bridges that go over massive bodies of water. There are even some parts where the road will straight up disappear, but if you have your engine charged right before it, you'll just boost right across the open field towards the continuing road ahead. There are even jumps you can hit to avoid vehicles and other obstacles that might be in your way. Overall, I really enjoy OutRun 2019. Everything about it is a fun and enjoyable time, even its new soundtrack is well done, with some tracks playing tribute to the original OutRun, but with their own unique flair. Our next home console OutRun game is none other than OutRun on the Nintendo Switch. OutRun on the Switch is pretty much the arcade version but with some added features and upgrades. This game is the perfect way to play OutRun at home. It looks incredible, controls like it should, and all your favorite OutRun songs and routes are here. I also really like how you can unlock upgrades for your car, which make the game easier to play, so once you've beaten the game a bunch of different ways, you're rewarded with a fun, more relaxing way to play this arcade classic. This is probably the version I play the most currently since my Switch is always hooked up, and even when it isn't, I can just take it out of the dock and play it handheld. I do want to give special mention to the 3DS version of OutRun because it's essentially exactly the same as the Switch version, but with some cool 3D effects. I know most people don't really utilize the 3D feature on the 3DS, but I personally love it. For all these great reasons and more, the Sega Ages version of OutRun on the Switch and 3DS lock in their position at number 3. Number 2 is a game I played a lot on the PS3. Unfortunately, OutRun 2 was never released in North America on the PS3, so I had to swap PlayStation IDs with a friend from the Middle East in order to get my hands on this bad boy. But once I did, I played the absolute crap out of this game. The graphics were a huge change from the original games, but it looked absolutely perfect. The new locations were amazing to drive through, and the speed as well as the drifting and slipstream reward system was beautifully done. In OutRun 2, you get speed boosts from slipstreaming behind or closely beside other vehicles. You have to use these slipstreams to slingshot your way past them without running into them. The drifting mechanics in this game are also perfect. You no longer have to shift down, continuously tap the brake, or let go of the gas for those tight corners. Now you can power drift around each and every turn without losing much speed at all. The game also added a mode called Heart Attack Mode, where you have to do fun little challenges given to you by your girlfriend. This adds a nice variety to the gameplay instead of just driving from point A to point B. I love OutRun 2, but there is one OutRun game that's better. Number 1 took everything from OutRun 2 and added to it. Literally. OutRun 2006 Coast to Coast actually contains all of OutRun 2, but has a plethora of new courses, cars, songs, and modes. Coast to Coast mode lets you complete different challenges to unlock more challenges, as well as load up on points which you can spend to buy new cars, courses, and songs. This game honestly is an OutRun fan's wet dream. It has everything you could ever ask for in an OutRun game and more. I love all the courses, routes, cars, and most importantly, I love all the cheesy new songs as well. I really hope that Sega decides to make a new OutRun game for the current generation of consoles, and that it somehow evolves once again, similar to how it did when OutRun 2 came out. There's never been another driving series with such a unique and authentic feel and sound like OutRun, and I hope someday we can get an OutRun 3. But until then, I'll be firing up my Switch or PS2 and taking a pulse-pounding yet relaxing cruise in my 1986 Testarossa Ferrari across the countryside. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you haven't yet, make sure to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell so YouTube doesn't bury my content on you. I do a bunch of different top 10 and top 5 videos, so check them out. And if you're on Twitch, come join me live at twitch.tv/Dookie03. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.